They were born to be criminals, and they're tough and mean, and they'll cut your throat, and they won't even think about it the next day.
Governor Wes Moore is firing back, escalating his war of words with the White House, comparing the president to racist TV character Archie Bunker and calling the comment a dog whistle in an appearance in Howard County.
Do not listen to what Donald Trump called you yesterday. When the president from the Oval Office calls you natural-born killers, children who are born to be violent, I say this: I respect the office, but I will never honor ignorance.
So I asked the governor if he thought he could use any kind of federal help combating crime.
We have been very clear with this administration that federal resources like that, like FBI and ATF, etc., those are always useful.
But Moore says he draws the line at the National Guard.
Donald Trump thought the spotlight would adore him, but the crowd had a very different plan. When his face lit up the Jumbotron at the US Open, it wasn't cheers that echoed, it was a wall of boos so loud, even Fox News couldn't pretend otherwise. And true to form, Trump didn't take it with grace. He snapped, he sulked, and he spiraled into chaos. The moment was raw, unfiltered, and humiliating. Trump, the man who brags about being adored everywhere he goes, suddenly realized the public isn't buying the myth anymore. This wasn't a handful of protesters, it was thousands united in rejection. Those boos cut deeper than any headline because they weren't from politicians or journalists. They were from ordinary people. And that's what terrifies him. He can't bully a crowd into silence. He can't sue a stadium into rewriting reality. In real time, the emperor with no clothes got exposed, and all he could do was scowl as the cameras rolled. And that's why he rushed online, frantically pounding out posts trying to gaslight America into believing what we all heard with our own ears didn't happen. But it did. Loud, clear, unmistakable. And then came the meltdown. The predictable storm of whining posts, the desperate spin, the fragile ego on full display. Trump tried to convince his followers that the boos were actually cheers, that the media somehow altered the footage. Imagine being so insecure, so utterly rattled, that you need to lie about crowd noise. It's the behavior of a man addicted to validation and allergic to the truth. His entire identity hinges on being seen as strong and adored, yet one evening at a tennis match shattered that illusion. Instead of brushing it off like a confident leader, he unraveled like a thin thread just tugged loose. That's not toughness, that's weakness exposed in front of millions. His denial only amplified the humiliation because Americans saw him try to cover up reality like a kid caught red-handed. The louder he denied, the more obvious the truth became. This wasn't strength, it was panic. And the cover-up? That's where the story gets darker. Reports swirled that media outlets were instructed to muffle or edit the sound of the boos, pumping in fake crowd noise to soften the blow. If true, that's not just insecurity, that's authoritarian control of the narrative. Think about it, a president so fragile he needs an entire press pool to pretend people love him? This is the same man whose supporters scream about free speech every chance they get, yet he's the one silencing reality. He doesn't want the world to hear dissent. He doesn't want the truth reaching your ears. That's not democracy, it's theater, and a pathetic one at that. If you need to rig sound levels to protect your ego, you're not a leader, you're a dictator in training. And America saw that ugly truth at the US Open.
Show you a post. This was posted yesterday. President Trump shared this on his social media account. It's directed at Chicago, and it reads, quote, "I love the smell of deportations in the morning, and Chicago about to find out why it's called the Department of War." Illinois Governor Pritzker called this a threat. Would you go so far as to call this a threat?
I call it a threat. I call it embarrassing. I would call it performative. And I do want to be clear about some of the stats. When people talk about how we've watched a decrease because of the National Guard, let's be clear about some of the stats. That the National Guard are responsible during this occupation for 744 cubic yards of mulch spread, 886 bags of trash collected, 270 feet of fence painted. You know what we don't have stats on? How many illegal guns has the National Guard seized? How many drug busts has the National Guard done? How
And
many
yet
arrests?
crime is down in D.C.
Oh, as it is in Baltimore. And in fact, if you're looking at the crime numbers in Baltimore, they're down around the same percentage from D.C. during the surge. And we did not have to ask these citizen soldiers to give up their lives and ask the American people to pay well over $1 million a day so we could have fences painted.
I want to turn.
And let's be honest, with Governor Wes Moore flat out saying Trump's post is a threat, he's right. This isn't leadership, it's intimidation. Threatening cities on social media isn't strength, it's desperation dressed up as power. Here's the hypocrisy. Trump and his followers cry endlessly about being silenced, canceled, or oppressed. They whine about losing free speech whenever people call out their hate. Yet Trump himself is out here trying to erase booze from a broadcast, demanding blind loyalty, punishing anyone who dares defy him. That's not free speech, that's tyranny of the fragile. And the irony couldn't be louder. He weaponizes the First Amendment when it suits him, but stomps all over it when reality bruises his ego. That moment at the US Open ripped away the curtain. He isn't defending free speech. He's defending his own ego. And that's the truth his followers can't spin away, no matter how many excuses they scream.
So then is this just, social media trash talk? When you say he's declaring war, is this tongue in cheek?
I think he's renaming the Department of Defense the Department of War. And did he not just say that Chicago will find out what it means to be at war? I take what the President of the United States says very seriously, because that is the respect you have to give to the office. And if that's what he's declaring, then let me make it clear. It would be an illegal order to declare war on a major city, any city within the United States by the President of the United States.
Senator Duckworth nailed it. Trump isn't talking about safety. He's talking about war against his own citizens. That's how fragile leaders behave. When you lose the crowd at home, you start treating Americans like enemies. It's reckless, it's un-American, and it's terrifying. This wasn't just a tantrum at a tennis match. It fits a long-running pattern of stunts designed to intimidate and distract. When Trump feels embarrassed or cornered, he lashes out with threats like sending troops into cities or renaming the Department of Defense as if it were his personal toy.
Well, they've not responded to any of our requests. I mean, I'll give you a very concrete example. Senator Durbin, myself, Senator Schneider, Congressman Schneider, sent requests into DHS to ask them to explain what exactly are you going to be doing at Great Lakes, and can we come look at your facility so we have a better understanding of what your operations are. And they replied, no, you can't, and in fact gave their staff the day off on the day that we went to go look at the facilities, and locked the doors and left the base. Basically, they fled the base. This is not the action of someone that's doing something legal or that they're proud of. They literally gave their people the day off, locked the doors, and left.
Duckworth cut through the noise. Trump's threats aren't strength. They're reckless theater, treating American cities like enemy territory. These aren't policies, they're performances. Each move is meant to project strength while covering up weakness. The booze at the US Open exposed him, and instead of reflecting, he doubled down with the same authoritarian tricks. His ego won't allow vulnerability, so he resorts to manufactured toughness that fools no one. Leaders across the aisle called him out, and it stung. Governor Wes Moore laid bare how Trump slashed funding for real community safety while bragging about cosmetic fixes. Senator Tammy Duckworth didn't mince words either, pointing out that Trump's threats to cities are unconstitutional theater. Governor Moore didn't just talk, he laid out a clear plan that Trump refuses to back. He tweeted, "We've made historic strides when it comes to public safety. If the president is serious about building on our successes, he can help by fully reinstating federal grants for our community violence intervention work, pushing for a federal ban on ghost guns and Glock switches which fuel violence nationwide, and supporting a full repeal of the Tiahrt Amendment, which prevents local leaders from stopping the flow of illegal guns into our state." These aren't just partisan digs. They're real checks from officials who actually dealt with crime and governance. They're saying what America actually feels. Trump talks tough, but his results are hollow. The boos were proof of that. The pushback was confirmation. When leaders dismantle his narrative in public, it shows how flimsy his entire act really is. And here's what matters most. Trump sells himself as the tough guy who never wavers. But the truth is painfully different. The second he faced genuine rejection, not from politicians, but from everyday Americans at the US Open, his facade cracked wide open. All the rallies, the choreographed applause, the staged adoration couldn't save him from that raw, unfiltered sound of disapproval. That's not the mark of strength for him. It's the reaction of a man terrified of losing control. A real leader brushes off criticism or takes it into account kindly and with self-reflection. But Trump, of course, unraveled over a tennis crowd. If a few boos leave him rattled, how can he handle an actual crisis? America saw it with their own eyes. Trump isn't the unshakable leader he claims, just a showman exposed.